and you can put a little what they call that little key. I don't even know what they call it, but it's right above the tab key or right next to the one, uh, on the not the numeric ones, but the other ones at the very top of the letters. So we got that. So now we should be having all the should have like any kind of data that we want pretty much from the curve over here. So I'm gonna go ahead inside, and the way we would actually filter that stuff is under geometry. You got a point cloud filter, which in our case we want to get, if I press P on the keyboard, we can actually go ahead and get the point positions of the curve. And being that we're dealing with vectors, you can tell by the signature over here is vector, the color over here is vector, so pretty much you're dealing in vectors. Now I'm gonna go ahead and drop in a subtract, and I'm gonna subtract these point positions from this particular point position. Now this global is our little particles over here, whereas this filter is our curve going up like this. Now it's time for our whiteboard. Now, assuming that this little line over here is our or this black line over here is actually our grid. I'm gonna go ahead and draw another one on top of that. So we're gonna be having let's say what, points all over, or these are the particles, kind of sorta, right? Then we're gonna have our center curve, or the point zero on the curve being right here. If I can actually make it darker, that'd be cool. So right here. Now the deal is, when you subtract, you actually create vectors that actually point to the in our particular instance, the curve. So you get vectors that actually point to the curve. If I can actually have these fill up. Nope. So you get vectors that actually point to the, and all of them actually pointing so. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this as one more example, and this one as one more. Then all of these come in, I'm assuming they're all, coming and pointing this way. So pretty much all of them are going that way. And all these are the vectors that you get from the subtract. Okay. Now the idea here is this one is going to create a force that pulls all the particles to this particular center point from all these directions, depending on how many points you have, right? So you're gonna get all these curves. So let's go ahead and see that in Houdini. So back in Houdini, what we're gonna go ahead and do is actually do under geometry, add an attribute, and the attribute over here is called vis vex or something. And I'm gonna just go ahead and copy this, and while on the viewport over here, I'm gonna press the D key, and I'm gonna create a new attribute vector, which I'm gonna edit. I'm gonna name it paste. I'm gonna paste that, then I'm gonna paste that, and I'm gonna give it a red color, since that's what we put in Photoshop. And accept, visualize that, and I'm gonna need to refresh this. So now what you get is really long lengths of the vectors, that get pulled out, of which, by the way, if you remember, this is supposed to be 0.2, so technically they're actually that long when you think about it. So we'll go hide the grid. So they're actually that long. They're not really as long as, but some are actually longer than the others. So to actually make them all the same unit length, you actually need a vector normalize, and if you actually look while you do the thing, it makes all of them the same length. And now if I actually plug this in as a velocity into our velocity port over here, what you'll actually see is that all our points get pulled into the center, or get sucked in, or now you can actually think of the subtraction as a force now from now on. So we can actually go ahead and play this, and you see the suction to the center, being that all the points are being pulled in to the center. Now that's one part of it, but now I actually need to make them go up. Now, if you do remember, we have the edge force over here, and I think I have to go back up a level or something for that to show. What's up with that? Edge dir doesn't want to show. What's up with that? Edge dir is still there. What's up with the edge dir? I guess it just doesn't want to show. Oh, it's actually showing, but it's actually really short. My bad. So I actually need to make them longer again. Now, these vectors actually point up, whereas our vectors over here actually pointing. We actually can go ahead and go back over here. What I'm gonna go ahead and do is explain a little bit about the vectors for one. So back in our little whiteboard over here, what we're gonna go ahead and do is get up vector, which in our case would be the green vector, and that should be bright enough for everybody, I believe. I'll make it a little bit fatter. And this is our y vector pretty much, so y. Then I'm assuming we're gonna have a z vector, so z vector over here, z. Now the best way to think about this would be to assume that what you're actually looking at is a flat grid or flat plane, like so, and it has, or it's a polygon. Then it has a normal. We actually point out to, in this particular case, if you think about normals, they actually just point up in one direction from the center of the grid. So assuming that's the normal, you can actually just think of it as this as a flat polygon, or however you want to think of it, and the product of the cross product of the y and the z in our case is actually going to produce something that's actually in the x coordinate, or the x vector. So now you actually got a x vector, which is actually the result of the cross product of the y and the z. So now technically, when you think about this, what we got is our curve, which in our case is the green stuff, with all the vectors, all the our edge force thing, poking up like that. Then we got our little points, which in our case be all the way on the ground over here. So I want to make that a little bit bigger. So those are all our little points, and those are enough. So what you actually have is the subtraction, pulling the points to this, and at the same time, when they get to the radius, which you're gonna specify. So when you think about it, you got this little force that's pulling it that way. Then you got this particular force, which vector, which is actually pointing up. So you got this, and I'll go ahead and do a black. So you got this, and you also got this, which is actually this going up, and this one is actually this way. So what you'll get eventually from the vector is actually this. Now you can imagine that you actually have all these points doing the same thing over and over with the cross product. So you got this flat surface producing this new vector, which is actually a cross. Now when you think about it, technically they're actually gonna keep on spinning round and round, till they get out of the radius of the whole point thing. But easier said than done. Let's go ahead and do it in Houdini. So same thing over here. So all you're gonna have is the vectors, pointing up and down. I mean, pointing to the whatever. So in our case, what we need is this particular green stuff over here, which is the edge dir. So we're gonna use another point filter, pretty much. And you can actually use the same point cloud over here since it's the same thing. So we're gonna use a point filter, and what we actually want to get out of this is what we called edge dir, right? And once we get out what we get out of that, we can actually do a vector cross product out of it and plug that in right here directly to this. Okay, now don't forget, for ours, where I put mine has a multiplier to it, so you can actually have it bigger or smaller. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug this. Now don't forget that this is actually the suction force that needs to pull this in, and this one right here just makes them spin around. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this out for now, and just plug in the velocity, and you got this particular point cloud search radius from the point cloud open, so you need to tell it how far to search. So you probably want to search a radius of 2, 3, 4, something, whatever. And now if you actually play this, you see that the points right there at the middle get, this thing pulling them in. And now how you want to think of this stuff is actually that this stuff ain't strong enough, or this one ain't strong enough, so you need to do something to it. So you would try something like a math constant, probably constant right here, and probably put a number like 2. Let's see what that does, and probably let's raise it higher to a number like 5 so we can see the effect a little bit better. So you see that they actually spin a little bit faster on this one. So if I put value like 15, you get a whole different scenario, really quick spin. So now how you actually want to do this is actually just dropping a multiply, a vector. Then what you want to do is actually promote this parameter to speed or something like that, and that's actually how you would actually come up with the names or something for this stuff. And now if you go back up, you have a speed attribute over here, which if you put up to 15 or put up to 20 in our case, we're gonna have it spin a little bit more faster than we had earlier. So same effect, but now you can control a little bit better from the top level. So that's our little speed control. And pretty much when you think about it, all you need to do now is actually add what you subtracted earlier to pull it. So it's gonna pull them in and add the rotation to it. So what you're gonna get now is actually something that's going round and round. Now I'm thinking that probably my edge force over here ain't strong enough, cause okay, and after a little bit of thinking, when you think about it, actually I'm kinda not so clever sometimes, but our force over here needs to be continually added up, right? So when you think about it, all you need to do is actually add the edge force to the pop net over here. So just get this force out and add that to that, and what you get, which I'm gonna go ahead and change some of these settings, number of points to 10, touch radius, probably increase it a little bit, and play this. So now you get this thing going up, but I got this actually makes it tighter, which I was trying out. I'm gonna delete that. So now you get this effect of the points going round and round, but the radius is kind of big. And so if you actually want to make the the radius of the whole thing a little bit big or smaller, you can actually drop in a multiply right here and create a promoter parameter over here, and name it radius. So name it something like that, anything that you want to name it. So radius, probably you want a radius of 3 or something like that. So play this, and now you get this. Well, probably radius bigger than that. 6 probably, and a such number of points, make it low. Such radius, put a small value, I guess. Play this. And well, as you can tell, you need to play with the settings a little bit. So to add a little bit of randomness, you're just gonna add in some noise to this. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is actually drop in you can drop anything, but I guess this will create the best noise, if anything. Which you're gonna get the point positions over here, and you can just matter of fact, all you need to do is actually just add that to the original stuff over here, and righteously you can actually there we go, you can actually promote that 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 probably, and probably step size. And now if you go back up, you just need to play with some of these settings, and the offset probably enough. You could just put a $F or something, or frequency in Y you can put a $F or something. This one you can put a $T. This one you can actually put a $FF. So pretty much you can play with the settings as much as you want. And let's see how that works. You get a lot of noise, so probably you wanna multiply this by, and as you can tell, some of this stuff you're really gonna have to play with the settings, because uh, they get kind of tricky. So yep, that's all I'm gonna say for now. So frequency, I'm actually go ahead and do myself, because it seems it's gonna be bugging me for quite a bit. So, and we're gonna have a radius. Search radius. What's up with that? Hold up. Let's see that one more time. And I'm gonna go ahead and try this one more time, and pretty much, okay, so that was the problem. It's number of points, search radius. So there we go. I guess that should be it as far as for the tutorial. I'm not even gonna show those. So now that you got your knurls, oh, so okay, so now I can actually go ahead and play my thing over here, and you know, depending on where I put my curves, my nulls over here, I got my little thing following. So pretty much that's the end of the tutorial, and well, all you gotta do is now is just play with the settings a little bit, as I did. As you can tell, sometimes the settings are kind of flaky, so you gotta, you know, mess with them quite a bit. So I guess if I can get this particular tutorial to work, I'll be happy. But I'm done with this one as far as for getting the whole thing to spin and stuff. Hopefully my Photoshop and my whiteboard thing didn't confuse you guys. So now if I can actually get this tutorial to work, I can actually post it, but unfortunately I'm not able to make it work, which is a procedural crack tutorial, which I've been trying to get to work, but it really doesn't want to work with me. And what I mean by procedural is well, don't worry about the nodes over here. That's the first test, second test, and it didn't work. So what I mean by procedural is I can actually change the crack using the L system over here, But unfortunately, what the problem is as of right now, as you can tell, everything else works when it doesn't have any holes in it. When it has this things over here, it creates these little holes, and that's the only holdback to the whole tutorial. Other than that, I guess you're just gonna have to wait till I figure this out. Then I'm gonna show you guys how to create this one because I really like this thing, but if you can work with me. But again, see you on the next one. Oh, by the way, I've tried every kind of thing to make it work, but it just won't work with me. So see you on the next one. I'm out. So, killer. Sing.